Yallamurra Garden is the home of a professional gardener who has taken the challenges of the dry South Australian climate and soil and used those constraints to create something truly special. The garden is about an hour northeast of Adelaide. The climate here is really harsh, and like at my place, there's salty bore water. But despite these tough conditions, you can't keep a good gardener down. If you were asked to describe your garden, what would you say?
I would say it's fairly wild, fairly unusual, a blend of chaos with formal structures as well.
Kurt Wilkinson has spent the last 20 years honing his skills as a professional gardener in Adelaide suburbs and describes himself as a greenscaper, topiarist and hedger. And you can see from his garden that he likes to take his work home with him. Kurt has used formal structured hedges and domes interspersed with wild drifts of grasses, herbaceous perennials, succulents and flowering annuals. You've created this all in 7 years. What was it like when you came here?
Well, the previous owners had used a number of natives in the garden. There's paperbarks, there are native hibiscus. And so then when I came in, I suppose I saw some opportunities to use those native plants to create structure in the garden.
So to create those neat domed effects, you would have had to butcher them fairly hard.
I did butcher them very, very hard. I just tried it and it worked out. It was really, it was a great result.
Now, I noticed that most of them, you're not letting the native hibiscus flower. Why is that?
Well, the flowers just take up so much energy from the plant, and what you find here, because of the location, everything through summer gets very, very stressed out, and so by trimming them constantly, they keep on putting out nice green growth, and then I get the contrast between the yellows and the browns in summer with a really, really contrasting green of the formal structures.
So another formal structure I can see you've got in the garden are these beautiful pencil pines, but they look very tight. Have you been trimming them?
I have been trimming them. I trim them from time to try and keep them nice and tight and very, very skinny.
Have you trained them from the beginning to do that?
Very much so. With this plant, if you let it get too long, you can't cut into old wood. So regular maintenance is definitely the key. When they're younger, you just need to run your hands down the plant and it flicks out the longer sort of leggier growth, and it's just a matter of just snipping that off. And then once they fill in, then it's just hedge trimmer all the time. Just hedge trimmer and then redo the point regularly because I don't want them to get any higher than they are now.
So how often would you give these a haircut?
Maybe I'd probably spend maybe 5 minutes on each one of them, maybe 4 or 5 times a year.
They look fabulous. As we walk along this hillside, I'm loving the pops of colour in here. What are your favourite plants here?
Love the leucadendrons, love the lavenders, love the centaureas. These are the grey bushes through here. So tough. They're my plotters. They just keep on going. They really perform. Obviously, some die after 3 or 4 years, but hopefully they self-sow or just take cuttings and put more in. So you're constantly regenerating the garden because things do not last forever. And so the design kind of changes in a way because you keep moving things around. It's not static.
Well, nature isn't static, is it?
Absolutely, absolutely.
And I love the way you're using the grasses here. I mean, we all like the look of the ornamental grasses, but they're not as hardy in our climate. So here you're using the grasses that would grow in the paddock for the same effect.
Absolutely. I do have some of the ornamental grasses and they have struggled so much. And so I leave the grasses because I just love the movement and the effect and the way it kind of makes things float. So you just work with what you have and what grows easily.
Now, I can also see here how thin your topsoil is, and then it goes into rock.
It is pretty average. And yeah, if I had known this when I moved in, I may have tried a different location. But it's made me a better gardener.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you work with what you got. I have a gardening dog as well. He has no appreciation of aesthetics.
Now, one group of plants that's thriving despite your shallow soils is the succulents.
I love them. I never used to, but necessity required me to diversify my taste, and hence I've gone down the succulent route. It's great structure, colour, form, interest. It ticks all boxes.
Now, of course, they're a little bit contentious because in some parts of Australia they can become weedy.
They can, but here the conditions and a few pests and diseases seem to really knock them around in summer, and then they really don't get going again until next autumn.
You really are learning by trial and error and using what works, aren't you?
Oh, totally. What is left here are purely the survivors of what I started out doing. I tried so many plants, and then these are just what's left over. And so you just have to go with what you have and try and be creative and create a garden that you really can enjoy.
This garden is an example of serendipity at its best. In trying to tackle the challenges of this site, Kurt has created something that is truly unique. Yallamurra brings together some of the principles of the best international garden styles and puts them together in a setting that is truly South Australian.